My name's Emily. I have the privilege to serve Kadlec as the Director of Communication. And I told myself that I didn't need to write anything down, and I probably should have. Everyone knows that I'm kind of the resident crybaby, but what an incredible day today is in the history of Kadlec. I don't think 3 years ago anyone could have guessed that, what our team would have walked through and the way that our caregivers would serve our community. But again, today is important. It's a day that we get to really recognize and honor and thank our caregivers for the incredible way they took care of our community through the COVID pandemic and the way that they continue to do that every day and every night, both here at the hospital and in all of our extended campus locations. Our caregivers are brave and work tirelessly, and they're compassionate, and they're really the best that there are. So again, today's important. I'm glad that you're all here. We have a great group of caregivers and leaders who are going to speak about what working through COVID meant for them. We're going to start with Caitlin Meyer. Caitlin is a senior medical assistant. She works at one of our urgent care clinics. So Caitlin. So I'm sure it was for everyone. COVID was confusing at first, to say the least. I remember providers doing x-rays on the respiratory patients that came back with the weird-looking pneumonia, they said, but it wasn't a pneumonia. And then once the news broke of COVID, all the previous x-rays made more sense. The urgent care was the first medical office in the Tri-Cities to see a positive COVID result. The change in the clinic from there was difficult, but we all worked together as a team and went through the flow of things as they were happening. The urgent care went from a clinic that saw all urgent needs to only seeing COVID patients. Some days were long because in the beginning of COVID, people were scared, nervous, not wanting to come to a medical facility where the COVID was happening. So there were days where we would see single number patients, and that wasn't normal for us. We would see over 100 patients a day. The strength that I saw in my clinic and my corridors were amazing. I feel that we truly understood why we chose this line of work, and that we wanted to help people in time of need. Times were tough in the clinic, from making sure that we had adequate PPE supplies to making sure we weren't getting sick and bringing COVID home to our families. We would talk to each other at work, saying how we kind of made fun of it, of how we would have to strip down and change before we even went in to see our family, just to not take them home the unknown and the disease of COVID. I believe we all learned a lot about ourselves and the ability to serve our community in the time of need. COVID came with a lot of changes as a healthcare worker, but I'm proud of our clinic and my coworkers for the way we navigated through the changes and that we're still able to serve our community and our patients. Thank you, Caitlin. And next, we're going to hear from Heather Whiting. Heather serves as a registered nurse on Kadlec's resource team.
So, like I think all of us that were asked to speak, I struggled with what I wanted to say, what truly reflected me and my experiences during the pandemic. And so I went back and read some journal entries that I had written during the height of the pandemic. And so I'm going to read a little excerpt of one of those. And I should have done what Caitlin had printed it out because the glare is making a hole and everything. Oh, so I was there the first night that the COVID unit opened on TBP, and worked there every night until it transitioned to 7 and 8, and then continued to support on most floors there. And so I really saw everything from the beginning of the chaos of every shift coming in, the change of what PPE we were supposed to wear, what order we were supposed to put things off and on them, and just the chaos and the unknown of what we were doing, and trying to navigate that and find a way to adequately care for our patients in that kind of environment. So this is what I wrote. I said, I have seen firsthand the pain and trials COVID can bring. I have seen strong nurses break down in tears because they can't face taking up another dying patient that they can do little for, only to rise again and go to work. I have cried with families quarantined away from their dying loved ones as they struggle to know how to say goodbye or Vidyachar. For all the tears and trials, I have also seen a great love and outreaching of support and love from those around me and from my coworkers who give me the strength to carry on and who help us to know how to navigate this trying time. I could not have survived the COVID pandemic without my coworkers. I was surrounded by a team of people who, despite their own trials, their own things that were weighing on them, and talked about the fear of taking it home to your families, when it's very real. You didn't know for sure, especially at the beginning, how it really was transmitting, and if what we were doing was really going to protect our families. And people showed up anyway, and they worked. Amazing respiratory therapists and nursing assistants and providers, just everyone pitching in and doing the best that they could. Again, this confusing and rapidly changing situation. And I'm grateful for the people that I got to work with, and grateful that I chose this crew, despite some days wondering what I was thinking getting into it. But it truly was as they say, unprecedented experience that I'm glad to have been part of.
Next, we can hear from Dr. John Nappison, who is the medical director for the Kadlec Emergency Department.
Really grateful that you invited me to speak today, and grateful to be here with such amazing colleagues. This has been certainly a trying 2 years. I think as we see, I don't consider this a celebration, but it is a very appropriate way to honor so many who have done so much for our community and our patients. The pandemic isn't over, it's ongoing. I think those of us who have worked through it are forever changed, and the impact is lasting personally, but also on our communities and on our patients and on our healthcare system, which is significantly challenged as we go forward and will continue to be. But it has truly been an honor to work with these great people from the beginning, when there was fear and uncertainty, as this has evolved to now just the relentlessness of it. I continue to see people who show up day after day despite their own personal challenges, just as has been mentioned. I've seen acts of heroism, compassion, and I'm honored to be a part of it and with my colleagues. And I think we also need to recognize our patients and what they've gone through and continue to go through it, and they're the reason we do it.
We're going to shift again. This time we will hear from Sonia Karanjia. Sonia is a registered nurse in our intensive care unit. More importantly, I'm a night shift nurse, and this is a lot of light. And I'm not used to this. A lot of people. And the other thing you need to know about me is I'm a parent of teenagers. I've been told I give really long lectures. So I have a little bit, maybe a lot to say. So if you roll your eyes, it's okay. I'm used to it. So, but I guess I'll just start. I'm honored to represent my ICU family today, share with you some of my experiences through the pandemic. On the 10th floor, we had a first row seat to every up and down, twist and turn this virus would take our community on. I've been struggling to figure out what I should share with you. I know we are happy to have our children at school, to be able to travel, to have our community gather. I know people are tired of hearing about COVID. They want to move on. They don't want to hear any more sad stories. However, events that happened in our hospital have changed our community and our Kadlec family forever. They are events that deserve to be remembered. I'm not sure I have the exact words to convey the depth of the experience, but I'll try. During the height of the pandemic, I used Facebook as a diary, a way to process everything I was seeing and feeling. Today, I might not have words for you, but my past self did a pretty good job. If you'll bear with me, I have a couple of excerpts that really, I feel like, showed how I was feeling at that moment in time. And so I've been a nurse for 20 years, ICU nurse for 20 years, and 15 of those years here. Being an ICU nurse means you're often with people on the worst day of their life, but if you do your job well, you'll also be there for the best. We don't save everyone, but we are used to saving most. Now, we start our shifts reviewing who has died since the last time we were on. These are people who may have spent a month in our care. ICU nurses are used to working in stressful situations, but we're not used to losing every single patient we take care of. We are not used to many people, young people dying. We're not used to multiple members of the same family dying. Frankly, we're not used to losing. We're built and trained to save people. But now it seems no matter how hard or how fast we work, we keep losing them. I'm one of the most experienced nurses in our ICU, but these days I barely recognize who I'm working with. There are so many travelers and brand new ICU nurses. We've had so many experienced nurses leave the bedside because their hearts and bodies can no longer take the abuse of caring for COVID patients for this long. Maybe the people dying in our ICU are only a small portion of our community, but they're important to the people who love them and the people they leave behind. Frankly, we're doing everything we can to save them, but we need our community to do their part. In 20 years of nursing, I've never seen so many people die. During this pandemic, we weren't only nurses to our patients, but we became their family. We held their hands as they died over Zoom calls with their loved ones. That is not something I was taught in nursing school, and is not something you easily recover from. October 15th, 2021. I feel like I'm always sharing sadness, so today I wanted to share a few bright spots. Making the choice to add a little pop of color in my COVID wardrobe, I started wearing bright, cheery headbands. This note from an elementary student. It brings me joy and it makes me cry at the same time. I'm trying my best to be joyful and bright, but like his note says, COVID makes it hard. Thank you, Thomas. Your beautiful note makes me feel seen. Dovetail Joint sent us treats. Dovetail Joint, quarters, fat olives, regularly treated us so well this entire pandemic. It feels so good to be cared for. My 14-year-old boy made his mom a playlist to lift me up while I worked through the night. A combination of classics and new music to extend my horizons. Listening to his playlist feels like a hug in the darkness. Having enough staff to allow me to do my job well. A true gift. A nurse friend made heartbeats in a bottle for each of my grieving family members, a gift for them, but for me too. It allowed me to give them something beside my condolences. And finally, finding hope in the middle of tragedy, organ donation. Being part of a process of turning the end of one life into a new beginning for others. Getting the chance to once again work towards something positive, to have the chance to make a difference. To see the sun rise when you have been bathed in darkness for so long. It's important to realize that every healthcare provider in this building, they have families, and many of us struggle to not lose ourselves and to bring not just the virus, but our emotions. It was hard to live in these two worlds. And my final memory for you, April 22nd, 2022. I normally don't have nightmares. However, today I had one that made me reflect the entire day. I dreamt there was a tsunami coming. I was in a building doing my job, and I was committed to getting things handled before I would hunker down with my kids and wait. But just as I was about to find my kids, the tsunami hit. The wave was huge and engulfed everything. We knew it was coming, but never believed it would really be so big. I felt the weight of the water as it rised. I remember regretting not getting to my kids before this moment. There was a sense of being overwhelmed and not knowing if I could keep holding my breath and wait for the wave to pass, or if I could just open my mouth and stop fighting. I'm almost positive it is a pandemic-related induced inspired dream. I'm loving this post-pandemic lifestyle and love it so much I often underestimate the trauma of being a nurse, of being a human, these past 2 years. I'm perfectly functional and capable, but it just comes out in unexpected ways. I hope my past self has given you a little glimpse of the pandemic experience above the 10th floor. I still grieve for the patients we have lost and the nurses that have been forced from the bedside. However, I'm so very proud to be a part of a team that persevered and found a way through together. So I thank all those who've made this plaque this physical reminder of both the tragedy and the triumph that occurred in this hospital. Thank you for giving us a place to grieve, to remember, and to be seen. Thank you, Sonia. The next layer of Dr. Fanny Continetti, who's a medical director of our intensive care unit.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm going to use my cheat sheets here. I'm sorry. So thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak here today. It is nothing short of an honor to speak about how the COVID pandemic had impacted me and my fellow caregivers. The great American doctor and the father of modern medicine, Sir William Osler, in addressing the American Medical Association in 1896, proclaimed that humanity has but three great enemies: fever, famine, and war. And of these, by far the greatest and by far the most terrible is fever. Even after 100-odd years, this remains true, and we experienced it when this infectious viral illness wreaked havoc in our community. You see, fever or infections, they have no agenda and no boundaries. Fever doesn't take any sides. But as humans, we do. And we realized this early on. I clearly remember the fear. We were all scared. I clearly remember the uncertainty that we as a society faced. And I clearly recall the panic we all experienced as caregivers. Fear was palpable. At home, when we looked at our families before leaving to work, at the grocery stores when we saw essential workers showing up to do their best, we felt it as physicians when our experience came short. Uncertainty was prevalent, feeding into the fear. Uncertain how bad this could get or for how long this is going to last. And the helplessness that despite being the caregivers, everything we do may indeed be in vain, as Sonia's pointing out. But each time we walked through the portals of this hospital, I saw something remarkable start to take shape. I saw that nurses, respiratory therapists, ancillary staff, advanced practitioners, physicians, surgeons, they all came to fulfill their roles. And despite the physical stress of caring these patients and the emotional toll of the pandemic, I didn't see anybody quit in my circle. I saw fear be replaced by hope. I saw uncertainty become courage. And I saw vanity transform to humility. Now, having a memorial dedicated to these efforts reminds us of the distance we traveled together and the challenges we faced and emerged together. I sincerely thank the donors who have contributed to this gesture. The lessons learned were hard, and although we're still dealing with some aftermath of the pandemic in the form of emotional, financial, and physical stress, I feel proud to belong to this community, a community of caregivers who bravely and tirelessly offered their services to these unprecedented times. And as Sir William Osler said it best, the medical calling, this fraternity, is universal. It is not the prevalence of disease or the existence everywhere of special people treated that betokens this solidarity, but it is the identity through the civilized world of our ambitions, our methods, and our work to prevent disease, to relieve suffering, and to heal the sick. Thanks.
Clay, before I pass off to Jim Hall, our Chief Philanthropy Officer, I just want to thank everyone who has spoken so far, our physicians and our nurses and our medical assistant. What an incredible way you have share about what it was like within the walls of the hospital and at the urgent care. And I know it's hot out. We've been out here for a little while. This is the stuff, right? This is what it's all about. It's why we all do what we do. So thank you for sharing your hearts and for serving our community the way that you did. This is for you. So Jim Hall, Kadlec Foundation Chief Philanthropy Officer.
Thank you, Emily. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jim Hall, and I work with two foundations that serve the patients, the staff, at the caregivers at Kadlec Regional Medical Center, the Kadlec Foundation of Tri-Cities Cancer Center Foundation. And I'm here on behalf of them. They are community volunteers who give of themselves to help improve the care that is delivered inside these walls all throughout the year, especially during these past 2.5 years. I also want to acknowledge members of the Kadlec Community Mission Board, who are also, I think Diana is here. But again, these are volunteers that serve our community and serve Kadlec in so many meaningful ways. Angela Reinhardt, raise your hand, please. She's a longtime ICU volunteer. She was also a generous donor to this project, and so it's a combination of people like Angela, our Community Mission Board members, our Foundation Board members, and my colleagues on the executive team that have contributed to making this plaque possible today. And it's just a small token of appreciation that we can pass along to our colleagues who have been performing so admirably. But just one quick memory and that comes to mind for me with May of 2020. And we were here on a Friday night, and that's the only time the top floor of the garage has been full of vehicles, of people. And on a Friday night, it was fun to gather up there and have the community come up and pay tribute. The staff members, a lot of the staff tried to come down if they had breaks at the wave and say thank you. We lit up a light that still actually, if you drive by in the evening hours, there was a message back to the community, thanking the community for supporting us in so mitigating ways. I just want to thank on behalf of our boards, our executive team, and all of the community members who we represent. Thanks to our staff who've just been incredible these past 2.5 years. So thank you.
Stephanie Williams, our Executive Director of Ancillary Services, is going to share a little bit of information about a project that we walked through as caregivers earlier this year.
Yeah, so in May of this year, May of every year, we celebrate what we call Kadlec Week, and that's our opportunity to recognize our caregivers and celebrate the great work that folks do in healthcare in the hospital. And so during that week, we took the opportunity to ask our caregivers a little bit about their experience with COVID, so reflecting back on positive memories, maybe some things they didn't know so well, and they submitted those to us. So we have collected these, and we're going to actually plant a tree, in addition to the plaque, in honor of our caregivers, and we're gonna plant this at the bottom of the tree. It didn't allow us to kind of let those things go, but also nourish something that's going to continue to grow and live and be a positive reminder of the benefit that our caregivers brought to the community and the experience they had. It definitely made us different people. Having been the station experience leader here for some time, the day that it came and we had to say no to visitor was one of the hardest days for me ever. Was the last thing I would have ever thought. Haven't always been known for the, welcoming and open to as much family as if we could manage and patients would want. And that was really difficult, and we recognized that was a tremendous difficulty for the community as well. And it certainly wasn't something that makes us lightly. So, as we go forward, hopefully this terrace will continue to be a place of healing for everyone who has the opportunity to spend time here. And it's want to thank the team for all that they've done, everybody that I can see here, and I know was working then towards as contributed to that just tremendously and unselfishly. And with that, I just say thank you.
We're going to plant relinquish the scroll of memories, and we're going to ask for Dr. Matheson. We're going to have to draw it out there. Probably come here.
Never happens to get in. It's bucket.
All right. Next, I'd like to introduce Reza Khalil. He's our chief executive for the Southeast Washington Service area, and he's going to say a few words before we unveil the plaque.
Thanks for being here, everybody. I know it's a little warm, but really appreciate everyone joining us today. And our caregivers have said it best. What this has meant to them this last few years, and I want to echo one of the things Dr. Matheson said about today. It's not a celebration. This is really a memorialization of what's occurred, a remembrance, if you will. And as I think about what I want to remember from the past 2.5 plus years through this, I'm always torn between a couple things. And so if you'll bear with me, I think one of the things that comes to mind immediately when for probably all of you, in addition to myself, when we think about the last couple of years, is the term scarcity. And it started out with, as we've heard, scarcity of PPE, masking, hand sanitizer, lots of talk about ventilators in different parts of the country. What we don't have, it moved on to scarcity of just the amount of caregivers we had to take care of the surging volumes. As you heard earlier, scarcity in some ways of knowledge, of just understanding of what was going on and having clear answers. And a lot of those things. I didn't mention toilet paper. I guess that's another one that we'll all probably remember. But when I think about 10 years from now, what is it that we all want to remember? And what is it going to be really important for us to remember and hold on to? I think I would shift over to the side of abundance. And with all of that scarcity, some of the things that we had in abundance of here: courage, resilience, teamwork, compassion, spirit. Probably a much longer list than that. I'll just end by saying love. I think that's what ultimately we saw an outpouring of among our team here. And when I think about this as an old man someday, I hope that those are all the things that I will remember, because they're all true. And that's really what we want to remember with this dedication, that I think is going to be a permanent fixture for us, and somewhere where folks can come back and reflect on all those things. Thank you to all our caregivers for everything you've done and continue to do throughout this.
Well, we're going to count down from 5, and we'll have Stephanie and Marisa remove the sheets. What would we guess? All right, so we'll start at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and I also want to give a real shout out to our media partners. Throughout the pandemic, you have helped us share really important information with the community, and we're really grateful for the way that partner with us and really respond and to say, hey, we've got something that needs to get out there and something to share. So thank you for your valued partnership. We appreciate you. And I also think it's really important that we thank our community. Like Jim shared an example about the way that the community came out to love on our caregivers, and they just showed up time and time again. So thank you to the Tri-Cities community, for Carrie, for our team, and just the deepest thanks and gratitude to our incredible team as the caregivers.